Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to be making an image that is quite similar to this one. I originally modeled this paper boat for my pencil tower destruction video, and if you haven't seen that, you should definitely check it out now. Fair warning though, if you are struggling with depression, it might just send you over the edge. It is quite emotional. It features an original piano score by me and is overall a very somber video. So viewer discretion is advised on that one. Anyway, let's go ahead and begin. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is delete this cube. We're going to add a plane. We're going to rotate it on the x-axis 90 degrees. Press 1 to go into front view and 5 orthographic. And we're going to scale it along the x-axis. Something like that. We're then going to press tab to go into edit mode, and we're going to select these bottom two vertices and we're going to scale them in towards each other. Something like that. We're going for a trapezoidal shape. With these two bottom vertices selected, we're going to press subdivide, and that's going to give us another vertex here right in the middle. And we're going to do the same thing up here. Press subdivide. That'll give us one in the middle up here as well. All right, we're now going to use a really interesting tool called the knife tool. We're going to left click on this vertex and come up to the top center vertex and left click again. We're then going to come down to this bottom vertex, left click one more time, and then press enter. And we're going to select our knife again, and we're going to cut another one right here from the top to the bottom center and press enter. Now we're going to select this top vertex here where all of these points come together, and we're going to pull it out this way, and we're going to select the bottom, and we're going to do the exact same thing except not as much. Alright, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to select these two vertices and we're going to pull them straight up like so. Alright, and that's starting to look a bit like a boat. We are now going to press tab to go back to object mode, and we're going to add a modifier, and this modifier is the mirror modifier, and we want it all along the z-axis. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to press apply. Now we're going to press tab again, and we're going to come to this bottom, and we're going to select these bottom edges, all of them. And we're going to press F to make that a face. So that's now a face. We're going to press tab again, and we're going to add another modifier called solidify, and that's going to give us thickness, some thickness, as you can see all the way around. We might want to do maybe half that, 0.005. That looks pretty good, I guess. Alright, we're now going to press apply and go back into edit mode. We're going to use the knife tool and we're going to make a cut right along the center. We're going to do it again this way. Alright, so we now have a new vertex right in the center that we can select and just drag it up. And there you go. The boat is basically done. And I think it looks pretty good. We might select everything, and let's just see what happens if we scale it on the Y to make it a bit wider. I think that looks pretty good. Alright. Press tab, we're back in object mode, and we're going to come over here and we're going to add one more modifier, and that's going to be a bevel. And if we get in here real close, we can see this bevel, what it's doing. We can increase the segments maybe to like 4 or 5. And because of the previous modifier, we get a hole here, but I think it's all right. Not only does it give us a bevel on the edge, but it's also, I believe, giving us a bit of a bevel right here on these edges as well. If we slide it, we can see the edges becoming beveled. So I think that looks pretty good. All right, we're going to click apply, and it's basically done now. You could say that that is a completed paper boat, and obviously it is missing the folded flaps here. You could go in there and figure out some way to do that. That it would actually be extremely complicated. I messed around with that a bit before starting this, and it gets really complicated fast. We can drag this up, and we can add a plane and scale it up, and position our camera. Position our camera in a way that looks all right. And just go ahead and press F12 to see what that looks like. Nah, I think that looks pretty good. So now we might want to add some color to it. You could, if you wanted to, you could unwrap this. You could unwrap this whole thing and put whatever texture you want on it. I'm not going to do that because that could take quite some time. I'm just going to add in a few materials to give it some color. We can delete this diffuse, and we can add in a shader, principal BSDF, connect it in, and select any color you want. I usually like the lighter colors, the more opaque, lighter colors. You could go with a red if you wanted to, but I'm going to go with maybe a blue for right now. You can mess around with these sliders to get something you like. I'm going to change my world color maybe to a little bit brighter so we can see what's going on a little better. It looks a little nicer. So now we have this paper boat, and it looks nice. It's ready to put in whatever scene you want. We can do a few things here if you wanted to. You could select this plane here and come over here into the particles, and we can add in a hair, and we could say that we want it to be an object, and we could pick our boat, and now we have a bunch of boats. Let's turn that number down to something like 200. We are now ready for a full-on origami naval battle. You might could come up here to this game engine and do something with that. That'd be interesting. But if you're not into warfare, you could delete that. Maybe delete this as well, this plane. And we could go in and add in some land and water. If you don't have this add-on, this is the landscape add-on. You can go into your user preferences and enable it. Of course, our boat is right in the way. It's a really cool way of creating some land very quickly, and we have the settings right over here for it. One that I really like is Slick Rock. I think that looks really nice. And I think I'm just going to leave it just like that. can now scale it up. Hold up, I'm going to leave it just like it is. And we're going to add a water plane. And that's just another plane that it adds, and we can control the height. Maybe something like that. All right, now with both of them selected, we can scale it up to be massive. We can move it into a nice position. And we can take this and scale it down to fit the scene a little bit better. Something like that looks pretty good, I think. We can reposition our camera so that we can get a nice composition going on. I'm going to take this land that we just created, and I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate it, and I'm going to drag it along the Y over here a bit. And that's going to give us some more land in the background, and it's going to make it appear further away. You don't want them really intersecting though. Let's drag it on back. Press 0 to see. Let's rotate it a bit on the Z. And let's drag it on the X a little bit. Maybe pull it up a bit. Bring our boat in a little closer and scale it down a little bit more. I think that looks all right. Open up the node editor. And we can add some colors in here. First thing I'm going to do is select this mountain here. We're going to press New, and we're just going to leave it as diffuse. And we're just going to bring the color down to kind of black. And we're going to select the one in the back, and we're going to press New again, and we're going to bring it down to something a little bit lighter. And this is going to create a bit of depth. If you're a painter, you know all about this, painting landscapes. Further it is away, the more atmosphere there is between you and the other object, and the lighter and more opaque it's going to appear. The world, let's go into the world and do some settings here in the world. Click on Use Nodes. We're going to add a texture. It's going to be a noise texture, and just plug it right into the color. And now we're in a crazy acid world. So we can want to convert that to black and white. We can do that two ways. We can do converter. We can go RGB to black white, or we can add a color ramp. And I'm going to use a color ramp. It's now black and white and looks kind of like clouds. You can play around with the slider a bit, so it's not quite so crazy looking. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to change our boat color to red, like in the thumbnail picture. Something like that. I might rotate it on the Z around. That looks pretty good. And now for the water. The water is pretty simple. All it is a glass shader. Glass. Plug it straight in. Now we have some really nice calm glass, really nice calm water in our scene. And if we want to give it some ripples, we can add a noise texture and a bump. Plug this in, plug the color into the height, and plug the normal into the normal. It's already creating this sort of ripply effect here, we can mess with the scale here. I think I'm going to bring the scale down actually and bring the distortion up. Maybe something like that. Bring the detail up. That looks interesting. And you can just mess around with these as much as you want to get exactly the look you're going for. All right, I think I'm just going to go with that. All right, so now you have a pretty boring looking scene here. We can add a lot of interesting stuff here by selecting the camera. And we come over here and we click on this camera icon here, and we can change the focus. We want to focus in on that boat there. So we can select the boat. And if you're like me and didn't label everything, then it can be hard to find, but I believe it's plain. And we want to change these blades to something like 7 and change the size. We can just start clicking this button here and we can see the background going out of focus, while the boat should remain in focus. And I think that looks pretty good. Not only is the background going to go out of focus, but anything right up here in the foreground is also going to go out of focus. And I think overall that's a decent looking image. It's kind of like the image in the thumbnail. There's a couple of things you could do with this. You can change the size. You can invert this 1080 by 1920. Now you have a nice ratio here that is great for your cell phone wallpaper. Nice cell phone wallpaper. Now, if you are the artsy type of person, nice and dramatic gray background with the bright red foreground, the main subject being the only thing in color type of deal. Or you can change this to 1080 by 1080. A nice square image for Instagram, ready for all your fake friends to like. Let's change the samples up to something gnarly like 1,000. And render it. And this is going to take a while, so I'm going to pause this here. All right, we're back. It has finished rendering. It took about 3 minutes. And as you can see, because of the glass and the weird caustic stuff, we have a good amount of noise going on right here. One way we can get rid of that in this particular scene is we can come down in here to the clamp indirect. Set that to like 0.5. It's going to really clamp down on a lot of the reflections and stuff like that. You're not going to want to do something like that if you have a lot of lights in your scene. But I think in this scene it is alright. So we're going to re-render that and see what that looks like. Alright, that's now finished, and we can see that that really cleaned up a lot of that noise here. And it still looks alright. Now this you could say is done, or you can always go a little further. We can go over to the compositor. One thing you could do is you can come over here to the scene tab. Under color management, we can change this to filmic, and that's going to make everything a lot flatter. If you're into that flat look, it looks pretty cool. Or you can change it to film, and that's going to add a lot of contrast, make things really contrasty. We can add a look, maybe something like a Kodak Gold 100. That looks kind of cool. I think it's a little too contrasty though. I'm going to leave it like that for now. We can come in and add maybe a color balance, and this is going to give it a bit of color Now you can see it's really, really dark. I think that looks pretty cool, actually. I encourage people not to just copy things, but to take it and use the other skills that they've learned elsewhere and turn it into their own original work. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.